Breaking news from North America's energy battleground. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has threatened a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States, marking a dramatic escalation in the growing trade war between longtime allies. This move comes just days after Prime Minister Mark Carney declared that the era of old-fashioned closeness with the United States is over. Canada is flexing its economic muscles, particularly in the energy sector. The numbers make this threat significant. Canada supplies 65 terawatt-hours of electricity to the United States, accounting for 20% of power consumption in several regions. Canadian crude oil exports to the U.S. are projected to exceed $70 billion in 2024, representing nearly one-fifth of total U.S. oil imports. Add to this 9 billion cubic meters of LNG annually, showing serious energy dependency. We hold these trump cards because we have a neighbor who imposes unilateral tariffs on us, stated Prime Minister Carney in his March 27 address, signaling Ottawa's willingness to leverage its energy dominance. The message is clear. Canada can explore alternative markets for its energy exports. An unnamed official from the Prime Minister's office confirmed that we are reviewing terms of trade in all areas, including electricity. This could spell trouble for U.S. northern states and energy-intensive industrial centers that rely on Canada's affordable hydroelectric power. The ripple effects could be substantial. Industry experts warn that any disruption to this energy relationship could impact production costs and daily life across numerous U.S. states, potentially triggering a broader economic crisis across North America. As temperatures rise in this diplomatic standoff, the question remains, will Canada actually pull the plug, and can the U.S. afford to call their bluff? Breaking news: North American trade war escalates as Canada threatens economic retaliation. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has unveiled an aggressive strategy to counter U.S. trade policies, threatening to reshape decades of economic integration between the two nations. Canada's automotive sector, with over $30 billion in exports to the U.S. in 2024, stands at the center. Carney's administration eliminated tax incentives for U.S. electric vehicle manufacturers, with Tesla facing potential impacts. Industry experts warn of price increases affecting consumers on both sides. Canada's agricultural sector is being wielded as a negotiating tool. With bilateral agricultural trade reaching $45 billion in 2024, Carney's threat to impose new taxes could have severe consequences. U.S. livestock producers are vulnerable, depending on Canadian canola and wheat imports. The energy sector presents another pressure point, with Canadian oil remaining one of America's largest import categories. Total U.S. imports from Canada exceeded $460 billion in 2024. This interdependence is too complex a structure to be tested by unilateral tariffs, Carney warned Washington. His message was clear. Canada won't be pushed around. The situation stems from disagreements over steel, aluminum, and agricultural products. Washington's America First stance has pushed Ottawa into a confrontational position. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has threatened a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S., showing provincial support for tough measures. The Canadian public backs Carney's stance. As negotiations continue without resolution, both nations face disrupted supply chains and economic uncertainty. This confrontation comes as global trade patterns shift, with Canada exploring ties with European and Asian partners. The outcome could reshape North American economic relations for years. Markets remain on edge, watching for signs of either escalation or compromise in this economic showdown. In a dramatic shift reshaping North American trade relations, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has begun courting European and Asian markets, signaling a potential end to Canada's traditional economic alignment with the United States. During meetings in France and the UK on March 27, 2025, Carney explored alternative trade partnerships, marking what European media dubbed Canada's emergence from the U.S. shadow. The stakes are high, with Carney wielding leverage through Canada's crucial energy exports. The nation's hydroelectric and nuclear power exports, valued at over $3 billion in 2024, have become a powerful bargaining chip. "We will put oil and electricity on the table," Carney declared, sending shockwaves through U.S. energy markets. The automotive sector presents a complex challenge. With Canada producing approximately 1.8 million vehicles annually, more than half destined for U.S. consumers, the interdependence runs deep. Industry experts warn that disruption could severely impact manufacturing hubs like Detroit, where production lines rely on cross-border parts supply. Agricultural trade adds another critical dimension. Canadian exports of wheat, meat, and dairy products to the U.S. reached unprecedented levels, with grain exports alone approaching $5 billion in 2024. American agriculture lobbyists warn that disruptions could trigger severe food inflation. Carney's March 28 statement that there are no guarantees in any area, including agriculture, sent tremors through financial markets. The Prime Minister's stance suggests Canada is prepared to leverage its position across multiple sectors. This strategic pivot represents more than trade posturing. It's a fundamental realignment of North American economic relations, with Canada pursuing European and Asian partnerships while threatening retaliatory measures against U.S. tariffs. The economic partnership between these neighbors appears increasingly fragile. Breaking news: North American trade relations face historic crisis. The long-standing economic partnership between Canada and the United States faces unprecedented disruption, with bilateral trade worth over $900 billion at risk. Prime Minister Mark Carney's recent statements signal a dramatic shift in Canadian policy, as Ottawa challenges Washington's trade practices. Carney declared on March 27 that Canada no longer views the U.S. as a trusted partner. "We are looking at different alternatives because there is no partner we trust anymore," stated the Prime Minister, marking a departure from decades of cooperation. The Canadian government is pursuing new trade relationships with European and Asian markets. France and the UK are in discussions for special trade agreements focusing on energy and automotive sectors. This pivot could reduce U.S. market dominance. Ottawa is preparing April 2 retaliation, with information suggesting new tariffs targeting automotive, metals, and agricultural sectors. Canada is exploring alternative markets through new agreements. The stakes are massive for both nations. While the U.S. depends on Canadian energy supplies, Canada risks losing its largest trading partner. The automotive sector's integration makes unilateral advantages unlikely, and consumers face potential price increases. Border states worry about protecting jobs dependent on cross-border commerce. Carney acknowledges potential difficulties but maintains that preserving Canadian independence is paramount. The White House's response has been measured but firm, stating they are considering all options. Reports suggest the possibility of tougher U.S. tariffs, while Carney hasn't ruled out dialogue, saying "I am always open to dialogue but cannot accept unilateral demands." The prospect of a trade war looms. The coming weeks may determine whether diplomacy prevails, or if North America's largest trading relationship faces irreparable damage. Breaking news from North America, where we're witnessing a major shift in continental trade relations. I'm your host, bringing you the latest developments in this economic showdown between the United States and Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney has declared that nothing is off the table in Canada's response to U.S. trade pressures. This isn't just political theater. We're talking about potential tariffs that could reshape the North American economy. Let's break down what's at stake. Canada holds massive energy and automotive leverage that could impact U.S. markets. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford is threatening a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States. In some U.S. states, Canadian Power keeps the lights on. The numbers are staggering: over $900 billion in trade between these nations in 2024 alone. Canada isn't just talking tough, they're actively exploring new partnerships with Europe and Asia. This isn't just a negotiating tactic, it's a fundamental realignment of trade relationships. The big question: will we see a full-scale trade war between these longtime allies, or will diplomatic channels prevail? The clock is ticking, and markets are watching nervously. This isn't just about tariffs, it's about the future of North American economic cooperation. We're seeing parallels to other global trade disputes, like the situation in the northern Black Sea region, where economic tensions have led to lasting geopolitical shifts. Could we witness a similar transformation in North America? What's your take on this? Will Canada's leverage force the U.S. to reconsider its position? Or are we headed for an economic showdown that could reshape global trade patterns? Stay tuned for continuous updates as this crucial story unfolds. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts below. This is truly a pivotal moment that could define North American economic relations for decades to come. In times of economic uncertainty, staying informed is your best strategy. We'll be here, bringing you the latest developments as they happen.